Hey everyone, I hope all of you are doing well and welcome back to Isla la Pacífica for the final and last speed build on the project. So after this, the project will go on a 2-week hiatus while I finish up the smaller things behind the scenes. But the things that we're going to build today are that bridge that I've been postponing for I think half the project by now, and we're going to finish up the museum. So there's going to be still some things that we built today, but after today, yeah, there is going to be a 2-week silence basically on Isla la Pacífica. And I want to ask you guys a question. So usually I would give some kind of context on how the question relates to the current video or an upcoming video. I'm not going to do anything like that, or at least I'm going to only give the context that it will make sense in a week. But what is your guys' favorite fairy tale? So drop down your favorite fairy tale in the comments down below. And you might already realize that, yeah, today's video is going to be extremely rambly, because even though we're building a bridge and a museum, when it comes to the museum, I have talked about most of the things already in the previous video when it comes to like architecture, setup and structure and such. So I'm basically giving myself a free pass right now to ramble about anything that I like. So yeah, hold on to your seats, today is going to be a wild ride because I don't know where my squirrel brain will take me. So anyway, as I said, I still need to talk a little bit about the bridge because building a bridge is kind of rare for me. I have no clue why, because it's not that difficult or annoying of a build, it's just that I never feel the, let's just say, motivation to build a bridge. So whenever I build a bridge, you be damn sure that I'm going to record it because it's a miracle. But today's bridge is kind of similar to one I've already built in Khan al-Bashar, and that's because, let's just say, I found out that in, let's say, a span of 500 years, beyond having like a wooden bridge, the stone bridge basically did not change at all. Well, some parts changed, but most bridges looked pretty similar. So yeah, the bridge is basically just, well, those two towers that I mentioned in the previous video that span the gap or the, let's just say, length that needs to be covered by the bridge, and then I just built a circle in between. So it's a pretty standard bridge, I would say. I did make it a little bit extra by having two sort of towery extensions on either side. These are just there because this is, of course, the bridge leading up to the governor's palace. So because the governor probably paid for this bridge, he is going to have a say in the looks of the bridge. So because the governor's palace is a little bit extra, the bridge leading up to the governor's palace also needed to be a little bit extra. So those towery extensions, well, they're just there to look pretty. But it also makes a little bit of sense when you think of like the structure of the bridge, because it does go over a waterfall. And because Isla la Pacífica is sort of set in like a rainforest biome, or at least in a rainforest climate, it's, well, PlanetZoo wise it's set in the tropical biome, but I just imagine it as a rainforesty island. That does mean that there's going to be periods of heavy rain, and the bridge needs to be able to basically tackle that without having like the, let's just say, minor chance that it washes away. So it needs to be strong enough to withstand the heavy rainfall and then also just the heavy current of the waterfall, especially during like the rainy periods. So that's basically the entire like structural thing about the bridge. Although I did need to actually make a landing on the plantation side of the bridge. Originally I intended to basically take the easy way out and build basically a hill, so that there was just like a few rocks and such placed so that it looks like a hill. Yeah, then I thought like there's no hill or anything whatsoever here beforehand, so there needs to be a man-made landing to the bridge, which I originally thought was going to be a lot harder than it actually ended up being. It was only like the, do you call it the foundation or just the pathway, but let's just say the underlying path on the actual PlanetZoo path was a little bit tricky, because when it reaches the ground, it's actually not completely flat, so I needed to change that up a little bit. But now that I come to think of it when it comes to like the bridge and just building in general, Trex actually mentioned this or suggested this in, I think 2 videos ago. Yeah, 2 videos I think. That it would have been actually nice to have basically a tutorial on how I build things, or like have a little bit more information on how I build things, because usually when people ask me that, I say I use the Minecraft way of building, which usually leaves people completely puzzled on what I mean. So I was actually thinking about when we get back to Kayan Albashar, because most of the building techniques that I use are featured in Kayan Albashar, because Kayan Albashar just takes reference from such a large area that basically every building technique that I can possibly think of is going to be used in Kayan Albashar. But I did actually think of a tutorial, and I already said in a lot of previous videos that I would probably be the worst at making a tutorial, because I can't explain things. I mean, I think that was already pretty obvious when I said I use the Minecraft way of building, and usually people are completely puzzled by what I mean. So I did think about what Trex suggested, and I am actually considering doing like one tutorial on just like I wouldn't say standard house, but just a house or some kind of building in Kayan Albashar using all the techniques that I know. And of course explaining that Minecraft technique. So if you guys want to see like some kind of tutorial on how I build things, do drop it down below in the comments. And so that basically leaves this video with 2 questions. So again, what's your guys' favorite fairy tale? And would you guys like to see a tutorial? With my rambly ass, that's probably going to be basically a crap show, because again, I am the worst teacher imaginable, so it might be a little bit more fun than actual educational, but maybe I will actually, come to think of it, we still need to build Kane's mansion, or Kane's palace / yeah, you're not going to get a residence anymore, it's going to be a palace. Well, smaller than my palace of course, but you're going to get a palace, but maybe I could use your house as like the tutorial. But anyway, so I need to talk a little bit more about what we're building, because I'm building a fake staircase. Yeah, let's just say the museum needed a staircase, so this was the only place that I could fit one in. And I did not want it to be functional, so I did not want to basically lay down a path, because then the peeps would just, you know, go up and there's nothing there. And of course it's going to be a little bit clippy with their feet, because let's just say that's actually the biggest thing in the museum, or at least that's different from the museum from the previous video, because when it comes to like all the exhibits, shops and the toilets, I had to redo it all because the paths would not go well. That was interesting, because I basically had to pick apart the entire museum again. So yeah, make sure that everything is aligned properly when you build something, or at least when that all the paths are correct, because pathing in PlanetZoo is sometimes a little bit of a horror show. Especially when you build something off-site, then place it on-site, and then you find out that the paths are weird. So yeah, let's just say, basic tip for me, don't build things off-site when it comes to shops and such. Build those things on-site. I really just thought like, oh, we're in such like a small area when it comes to the museum, like it's maybe easier to build something off-site, and also, well, it's just easier to build something off-site than on-site most of the case, or most of the time. That could also be featured in a tutorial on why I do that, but let's just say the space that the museum had, or has, yeah, it was difficult to get the museum to go well with all the pathing in it, because I still think that when I open up Isla la Pacífica to guests, that it's going to be a little bit of a shit show in the museum, because guests don't think about walls and such when looking at exhibits, so they will basically stare at the wall. So I did make sure actually that there's like a mosaic in one of the rooms facing a exhibit in another room, so that when the guests just blankly stare at a wall, it looks like they're actually looking at the mosaic. And no, I did not build the mosaic. It's, I think, the first mosaic being built, or one of the first, which is that snake mosaic. And then I just placed it on some, well, I think they're called like Indian sandstone slabs to make it look like it was ripped out of some place. It's basically just there to hide the guests being weird. But with that being said, as I said, I don't have a lot to talk about actually in today's video when it comes to the museum, because most of the things I already talked previously. But I am going to be able to say we have one more thing, actually sort of two more things to talk about, but one thing especially where there's a morbid thing in the museum. And I originally thought it was going to be too morbid for the museum, but then I also realized that I think 100 years later in like the Victorian area, or just the Victorian era England, that they cut up mummies at parties. Yeah, people, when you think of it, just humanity in general can be quite morbid. But then we also, you know, have a lot of like psychopaths and serial killers and such, so let's just say cutting up mummies at a private party is kind of mundane when compared to those kinds of things that also happened. Because I think, yeah, was it Victorian England also the era of Jack the Ripper? Humanity is sometimes really fucked up. So that's actually a little bit of what we're building right now, because this is an area or a room that's going to hold a Aztec or Mayan sacrificial table. Church is probably not going to like it, but let's just say the explorer probably doesn't really mind what the church thinks. But of course we are actually going to also end today's video with a tower, because for some reason when something gets large I can't help but build a tower. So we're not building that right now, but just so that you guys know that the ending of today's video is, well, not the ending because there's going to be a very small tour, but the end of the speed build today is going to include, I think, one of the, well, compared to the bell tower and the tower of the governor's palace, one of the most decorated towers that Isla la Pacífica will has right now, because I do plan to add a few more, because I'm a squirrel. I like towers. Sometimes I really think, why did I choose to, or at least, yeah, sort of choose to be a squirrel? Now I just think of every building in Isla Pacífica and Cayan Albashar that is climbable. Now it makes sense that I'm a squirrel. Oh, or a monkey. Which is actually sad, because there are no monkeys on Isla Pacífica. Though the next speed build might be a monkey. I'm giving too much away right now. Just imagine fairy tales and look, blood on a sacrificial chamber, or table, not chamber. Well, maybe. We don't know what the explorer is up to. But anyway, so building wise that's pretty much it. So yeah, I had some other things to talk about, but let's just say the squirrel talk kind of just numbed my brain for a little bit. So yeah, that's not a good thing to happen while making these commentaries, but today it actually makes sense, because it's just me being basically me. So how are you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are staying safe and indoors, or at least at home, or, you know, just stay safe around everyone else, especially those people at risk with the virus going on right now. It's a little bit strange, because, not to make too much light of the situation, but let's just say my lifestyle has since been named quarantine. Yeah, I barely go outside, so for me there's little to no change. Well, actually there is one change, which is kind of surprising, because I've basically just, well, I wanted to say I've been locked down at home, but I never left home anyway, so, well, I'm not really locked down. I can still go everywhere, it's just, well, not everywhere, but let's just say I never felt the need to go anywhere, so I'm basically a hermit squirrel, but I have had a lot of inspiration lately to build, which is again where that question of what's your guys' favorite fairy tale comes in. I'm giving way too much away right now. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I want to build, which is also the reason why the Mirage Mountains phase in Cayan Albashar won't have like a cinematic video. because I just want to build. And that's the one thing with like inspiration and ideas with me. If I wait too long, they will just kind of fizzle away. Then the ideas will just sort of die out, mostly because then I just keep adding things to it until it makes no sense, and then I just drop the idea. Because my brain can't go back to the original idea. So yeah, that's the reason why the cinematic video for the Mirage Mountains in Isla la Pacífica is not going to happen. Just because I want to build. I don't think you guys would complain too much, but that's basically the reasoning behind there's not going to be any cinematic video on that phase. So we're only going to have a tour, probably this Sunday actually. Yeah. Well, I say this Sunday, but whenever I make up a little bit of a schedule, it basically fucks me over, so it's going to be there Sunday. And now let's hope that I did not just jinx myself and make it so that on Sunday there's no tour. Yeah, I really think I jinxed myself right now. But as I said, we're ending today's speed build on a tower. Because I'm a squirrel, I like high things, I like to build towers. And it's, well, again, it's one of those ways to add a little bit more height and a little bit more just weight, I would say, to a building without adding too much volume. And as I said, it's going to be the, I think, most decorated tower on the island for, let's just say, this by the time of this video. The roof was interesting because it was a little bit puzzling to get the shape just right. But it also is going to have some fake facades, or, well, they're not fake, but I just wanted a little bit more oomph to the roof of the tower. Don't know why the museum has a tower. Well, if you think of it as like a museum nowadays, then it would make sense so that it stands out a little bit more. But thinking of this museum as just a random, well, block of houses that have been bought out, I don't know why one house would just have a random tower, but it makes it easier to find the museum nowadays. But yeah, maybe, no, actually I have no idea. Well, yes, maybe the original house, or the starter house, was formerly the house of the governor before he got that very extra palace. And yes, compared to all the houses in Isla la Pacífica, the governor's palace is really extra. Which makes sense, because of course you want to impress your guests, but yeah, it's so extra. And now I also reminded myself of the tour of the governor's palace, where I could really not find the word impressive. I just think I said impressing the whole time. These videos are fun to make, especially when there's no like thing that I really need to talk about, because then I basically approach it like I am sort of, well, I'm not the drunk that you would find in a bar, but I'm just there. Yeah, I don't make a good case for myself whenever I say I'm not drunk or anything, but by this point I really don't care. Also, well, now that it just pops into my head, but I do actually have a confession to make. I actually don't really watch my own videos. And before you guys are like, why do you don't like your own videos? I do like my own videos, but, well, it's sort of a deceiving answer, because I do watch my own videos, but by the time that they are on YouTube and you guys can see them, I usually have seen them 10 or more times. I mean, this is, I think, the 30th take on this commentary, because most of the times I fuck up on the intro. Yeah, there's not going to be any bloopery of that, because I'm just too perfectionistic, so I delete that right away. But yeah, by the time you guys have seen the video, I have already seen it probably like 10 or 20 times. So whenever it's on YouTube, it's just like, it's there. I finished my work. And then I just start rambling or thinking about the commentary of the next video. So yeah, don't watch my own videos on YouTube. I watch them 10, 20 times while editing, do like 30 takes on the commentary, so by the time you guys see it, I basically know every word and like every pixel on the video. But with that being said, the tower is finished, so we should get to basically what's going to be a mini tour. So see you in 5 seconds. So we're back for the after video tour showing what I've built so far, and you will notice that Isla la Pacífica looks quite a lot different compared to previous speed builds and tours, and that's because I'm following Rudy's video on how to get a filter in game when you have a NVIDIA graphics card. So weirdly it's now a good thing that my previous video card or graphics card died on me, but basically what I did was add a little bit more depth of field, heightening or increasing the brightness and contrast, and I do have to say it looks a lot better with it. I will not implement this in speed builds just so that you guys also see how it looks without the filter, just for like cinematic videos such as these tours, and for like a cinematic video I will probably do or will go forward with having this filter on the game. But also quick to note, our favorite wayfinding tool isn't missing the roof of the bell tower, it just is that when you go too far away from it, the game just doesn't render the pieces used for the roof. Weirdly enough, it does render the pieces for the dome, which are essentially the same pieces. So maybe it's just size that this roof is too small so the game doesn't want to render it. Or no, actually yes, it just doesn't render it, it just like goes away. But anyway, just to do a quick pan around to just show Isla la Pacífica with the filter on, and I just think it looks amazing just with the filter on it. I still need to finish the Gardens of the Governor's Palace, and he still doesn't have a front door, so that's one thing that I will do in the 2 weeks that Isla la Pacífica will be on hiatus before it returns with the tour and the cinematic video of the entire island. But now to look at what we've built today. So first of all, this bridge, and it makes sense actually that it's, well, first of all it's extra because it's of course extra because it's leading to the Governor's Palace, but the structure also works because just think about it this way: in the rainy season the water level of this lake and the waterfall will probably rise to, let's just say, the top of these rocks. So the plantation is just about safe. The foundation is just high enough that it doesn't flood, but it probably will become like a Phoenician style building almost. But yeah, the bridge needs to be strong enough to have those strong currents when the water level rises. Probably also the lake underneath it is going to flood even more, but going down because we need to get to the museum, and I went crazy with the sounds of the flamingos. So yeah, the tower of the museum doesn't make much sense unless it was a later addition, but if it was there from when the, well, building that it was on or in was still a residence, it doesn't really make that much sense unless the explorer, because I do think the lobby of the museum was his home before he expanded it into a full-blown museum. Unless the explorer was a squirrel like me, because I love towers. I think you can see that, because we already have 3 towers in the horizon. Also, didn't record this part of the museum and this part of the museum being built, and I have no excuse for this one, but this one I thought I had filmed or recorded that red building here in the background in a previous video. And no, I didn't. So yeah, I only found it out when I was finished with this build or this part of the museum. Also, quick to note, roof isn't finished completely yet, but we will get onto that later because we need to move to a certain area for that. So I did add a garden to the museum, or the lobby or front entrance to the museum, to give them a bit more presence. And a marketplace, or at least a few market stalls, because this is just a huge empty area and you have the church square right next to it. Again, just look at the light and everything with this filter. I love it. But yeah, the marketplace that's probably going to be in or on the church square probably maybe is not large enough, so the stalls just spill out onto this place as well. Also, let's be honest, it's just a way to fill up this space. But now, when talking about that not finished roof of the museum, I think that the red roof, because the red and yellow part of the museum, so the entrance and the red building, yeah, I've just called it the red building by now, are going to have different roofs than this. I have no idea yet for the yellow or the entrance building. The red building will probably have a roof similar to that one. So fake facade like roof or facade to the roof. I didn't want to have the yellow building also have that facade because then it just looks a little bit like I just copied the roof. Could probably work because buildings just copied each other, but I just want this as like a screenshot. Also, nice flag. I don't know, again, this makes even less sense because this is like a privately owned building. Why would they have a flag? Well, maybe if he's like very proud of being like Spanish, talking about the explorer. But yeah, this tower only makes sense when it's like a really official museum and Isla la Pacífica is not set in the 1700s. So now going actually inside the museum, quick to note, here's the bricked up door so that you kind of notice that the museum is just built up of different houses. And instead of going forward like we did in the previous tour, we need to go left into the snake room. I don't think we will find the snakes because, well, especially for, well, actually there's the constrictor. So I originally thought we weren't going to find them because these rocks are, well, hand placed because otherwise the walls of the actual building would show. And I really did not think we would find the snake because I have done this tour 2 times now already. Oh, you're now also showing yourself, so yellow anaconda. But most of the times I couldn't find the snakes, even that yellow anaconda. So for some reason, like I had 4 attempts at this tour and now only they show themselves. So that's fun. Yeah, I don't think I even need to try and find the spiders. They are so tiny. I mean, I like the spiders. Weirdly enough, the larger the spider, the more adorable I think it is. But looking at the building, well, you can see that it's just, they put a hole in the wall. And you'll see that this is probably like a less well-off person, probably just a normal civilian of Isla Pacífica. And this is more like well-off, more like a nobleman's look when it comes to architecture. So that's really what I wanted to achieve, that looks like different buildings. And, you know, Aztec / Mayan sacrificial table. Church is going to love that the, well, explorer, I almost want to say governor, but the explorer brought this to the island with, you know, your fresh coat of blood. And insects. Will we be able to find the beetle that is in here? Probably not, because when do you ever find them? I don't... Nope. I don't think... Like, maybe you guys will see it and I'm just blind, but I can't find that beetle. The centipede I usually have more luck with, because for some reason, well, I just call it a diva, because he just is there every time. Or she. I don't know if it's a he or she, I don't know. That's like literally how... Oh yeah. Can we call her Diva? Because I can always find her. She's always in the spotlights. It could also be a he. I thought that this tour would be short. No, we're already almost at 10 minutes. But that's actually going to be the end, because the rest of the building you already saw. So we're going to Zita's favorite spot. Just so to show you guys how that spot looks with this filter on it. With like the depth of field and the high contrast and such. Yep, still looks pretty amazing. Now with the inclusion of an actual bridge that I didn't postpone this time. But anyway, that's it for the speed builds of Isla Pacífica. I hope you enjoyed them. If you do, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but yeah, this is the last speed build video on Isla Pacífica. There is going to be like a cinematic tour and just a cinematic video in itself on Isla Pacífica, probably in like 2 weeks or so. Also, we are at Zita's favorite place and I hear a crocodile. I think he's underneath us. Or that one is just pretty loud. But anyway, so again, this is the end of the speed builds surrounding Isla Pacífica. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you all have an amazing day. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Stay safe, everyone. Take care of yourself, especially during these times. And just have an amazing day. This is, I think, the best way to close off Isla la Pacífica speed build wise, by just having the one of the most amazing views of the island. Bye bye!